You are the Magi from Siwa. I thought Magi's were supposed to protect the Pharaoh.
I am Magi to no Pharaoh. You see this?
I can read my own name, Nak! We will find you. We will find you in your sleep!
Sleep? I never sleep. I just wait in the shadows, and I will kill you all! Everyone who sniffed the air that day in Siwa!
The opening scenes of Assassin's Creed Origins portray an emotional and human tone to the game that continues through the entire game and both DLCs, and is something that is also portrayed in the rest of the series. Hello and welcome to Jaws Gaming. Today we're going to be comparing Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey and seeing which game better takes the series in the proper direction. So, like I was just saying, Origins keeps the story grounded and human, and I cannot emphasize what an important aspect of the series that being human is. Everything about the first civilization, everything about what you do in the game is about being human and not needing superpowers to change the world around you. Every hero throughout history has been 100% human. And you don't need superhero powers like in Odyssey to do that. You don't need to teleport. You don't need a piece of Eden spear on your back that has whatever abilities the devs think it can have. You don't need to turn invisible. You don't need to be able to turn one arrow into 50. Any number, or even the exploding, passing through walls arrows. It's too far for Assassin's Creed. Being human is so important in the games because, number one, it emphasizes how no one is above another. Everyone is equal, and no matter what or who you are, you can do anything you want. That is one of the things. Whereas you start adding these powers and it's like you're limited into who can do what. The Avengers don't need to come in and save the world every time. The Avengers have never come to save the real world because they don't really exist. The world has been constantly saved by humans doing human things. Not demigods, not superheroes, not supervillains. No. It's by humans. And what humans can do is remarkable, and we can do great things, and that is portrayed through much of the series up until Odyssey, which is probably my biggest gripe with the game. Now, another issue I have with the game, as far as the way the story is told, apart from the humanness thing, is the dialogue choices. Keep in mind, we're reliving history through someone's memories. We're not changing history. We're not in a time machine. None of that stuff. So the fact that certain events are so inaccurate to history is mind-boggling. For example, the Battle of Pylos at the end of the game, or at least the end of the family story. The Spartans actually lost that battle. They did not win. And I don't know why they're portrayed as winning. And another thing about the story is you never know when time changes. In the Ezio trilogy, you know when time changes. It tells you literally on the screen. And while other games aren't quite as blatant with telling you, like Origins, based on the events, you know time has changed because certain people have allied in different ways and have changed certain things and have a lot of changes that happen. You can tell by who is where what is going on. In Odyssey, you have these random, massive, at times, time jumps that you can't... How do you explain it? I mean, you go at the beginning of the game, you're in 431 BC. I'm sorry, forgive me. 431 BC. Pericles dies about halfway through. That would have been in 429 BC. And then by the time you get to the epilogue, the war is over, which would have been about 404 BC. And no one has aged. No one looks any different. Athens isn't burned to the ground and destroyed. None of these things have happened. Everyone's sitting around having drinks in Athens, of all places, the place that lost the war horribly, just having a good time. And that is not what happened. And that is a huge problem in the game. That's like in Origins, if instead of going to kill Caesar, Aya walked up, said, hey, you should step down from power and go, chill with the Senate. And everyone's like, okay, and they just had drinks. And then there was no Roman Civil War after that. It was just Caesar gave up his power and the Republic was back. Like, that's ridiculous. And it even comes down to certain historical characters that are portrayed, in my opinion, not entirely correctly. For example, I'm going to compare one from each game because I feel like they're very similar and it kind of binds them together. You have Cleopatra and you have Alcibiades. I call him that because that's what most people know him as in the history community. In the game, it's Alcibiades. He's got the K. He's the guy trying to sleep with you all the time. Cleopatra is often portrayed as having slept with half of Rome to get to where she was, where that isn't true. That is not how she really was at all. And that is mainly because most of our sources are Romans who did not like her, so they portrayed her that way, even though she wasn't that way. But she was a very cunning politician and a very smart woman. You don't entirely get the feel of that in the game. You really get her as a power-hungry, ambitious woman. But this lady spoke 7 languages. And if you know her family's history, and it's basically a one-line family tree, if you know what I mean, you would be amazed that this genius lady came from that line, and she was a very cunning and ambitious leader. Now, it's not wrong that she's portrayed as an ambitious leader. That's how she was. That's how she took power, and she was looking to do that within Rome as well before, Caesar got stabbed in the Senate. Now, aside from her, let's look at her counterpart in Odyssey, Alcibiades. Alcibiades, he is properly portrayed as having slept with anything that moved in the game because that's just genuinely how he was. He was viewed as a very attractive person by all of Greece, and some people are like if you read up about him, it's like he has mind control powers because of how attracted people are to him. It's weird. But that's not what this is about. Alcibiades wasn't just a crazy sex fiend who got what he wanted based off of his looks. He was a very cunning statesman and politician, as well as an Athenian general. Do you ever get the tone in this game that he's an Athenian general? Now, at the beginning of the game, he's young. He's not quite. He doesn't become a general till towards the end of the Peloponnesian War. That's fine. You can tell some of his side quests. He's sending you to do things, play things against themselves, very much like Alcibiades would have back then, and I give Ubisoft props for that. But he stays the same character the entire game. He doesn't change. There's no difference from beginning of game Alcibiades to end of game Alcibiades. He's just a crazy sex-craved lunatic who's always trying to get the opposite done of what he's telling you. And while that part is true, that's the only part of him that is true. You never see him as a general. You never see him grow up into something different, which in real life he would have done. I mean, the guy... he ended up leaving Athens behind after they tried to have him tried for sacrilege before one of his campaigns. He escaped when they recalled him from Sicily. He escaped and went to Sparta, worked for Sparta for a while, and they loved him in Sparta. He was an excellent general there. And yeah, disclaimer, yes, he was a leader in Sparta. That's how respected he was in the Greek world. Up until they found out he was sleeping with the king's wives, then they had a bit of an issue with him. There was a baby born that looked a little bit too much like him. You know, they kicked him out. So what does he do? He goes to Persia. And, you know, there's this whole long story. He changes alliances so many times, and it's like he's always playing against himself, but for himself, and it's wild. But you never get that sense from him in the game. You never see him develop. And, you know, we see Cleopatra. She's introduced as this queen who's partying a lot in exile and has her little hidden abode. And then she makes this lavish appearance to Caesar. And we see her become the queen that she is, a powerful and cunning queen who is doing her best to keep Egypt in power, whether it be working with Rome or otherwise. We see that growth, but we don't see that with Alcibiades. And no, they're not identical characters, but it just seems very similar, and they're just taken so differently, and I feel like that's just an issue with the game. I mean, it should have been done a lot better. There should have been a lot more depth added to that character. And one last thing, in the game it's portrayed as Alcibiades being really attracted to Socrates, when in reality it was exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. Socrates had a very creepy and weird crush on Alcibiades. It was strange. Anyway, let's talk about pieces of Eden and the way they're used in each game. So in Origins, the pieces of Eden are used perfectly. It really reminds you of the very first game. You have the apple, and it's a very powerful object that really screws with everyone's minds as you go through the Green Mountain region and Cyrene. You really see the chaos it wreaks on the region and what kind of problems it can have with people. You know, it really stands out in Siwa when you come back and everything's destroyed, everything's ruined, and people are hurt and sick and crazy, and it's kind of smoky. Whereas in Odyssey, you have a piece of Eden on your back that gives you magical powers. The other four apples of Eden are just sitting around in monsters' heads, so they have an excuse to put Greek monsters in the game. And you just pick them off the monsters after you kill them, and you know, you're just kind of waltzing around with 4 apples in your back pocket. You don't ever think to use them or anything like that. You got them. These very powerful objects are supposed to control people's minds. They're not used, so they must not be that powerful, and they're really just a way to make the plot move. They're for the Atlantis section of the story. It's so terribly done, in my opinion. The pieces of Eden are supposed to be a special and rare artifact, only to come across in dire times, and are being used for nefarious purposes. Not, oh yeah, just go answer this riddle from the Sphinx and you're good. You have a piece of Eden, you're fine. And it makes no sense at all. It is not the direction the series needs to go in for that. That is just not good. It's just not. And I'm hoping Ashraf's team, who's working on the next game, I presume, which should come out in 2020, I really hope they take it back on track the way Origins was. You know, Odyssey is fine as a one-off. As its own game, it's fine. But if you're moving the series forward, things like dialogue options can't be applied. since ancient Greece, you don't have the assassins yet, you're not bound by a moral code, so your character can choose to do whatever he wants. And as a mercenary, most of the time you're going to choose to do it for money. Well, that's not really part of the Assassin's Creed. When, you know, if you say, let's take the English Civil War. Say, I don't know anything about what Ubisoft's doing. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I don't even know if I even need to say that. But let's say it's set in the English Civil War, just for example. It seems like an interesting time period. The assassins are around. Ezio's already happened. The thing in Spain, we won't talk about it. Those things have already happened. So you have established assassins. You have, you know, the creed, the tenets, the things you need to follow. So you can't really give yourself dialogue options in a way to change history because it's not logical. You're bound by a creed, so your character can't choose to do otherwise. Otherwise, when he gets back to his assassin's hideout, he's gonna get killed for breaking the tenets.
What do you dream of, Bayek?
I mean,
I do not have the luxury of dreams.
Altair got stabbed for it. I mean, dialogue options need to go. They do. They don't fit in the series going forward. The things in Odyssey need to stay in Odyssey. They work with Odyssey just because of the where it's set and when it's set, but going forward it needs to go back to how it was in Origins. And don't get me wrong, I know I've been complaining a lot about Odyssey. It is a great game. I did have fun playing it, but pretty much the entire time I just was telling myself that it was an Assassin's Creed game, and it made it better because it was just better. Now, if Ubisoft wants to make a new IP where you go through the mythologies of these ancient civilizations and it's somewhat historical but not really, that would be a great series, and I really hope that they do something like that. I would enjoy that, but when you slap the Assassin's Creed badge on it, it has certain things that it needs to fit within. It has certain things that it needs to be, otherwise you're just putting the name on it for the sake of sales, which nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. No, they don't. And your hardcore fans are going to leave if they keep that up. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Origins versus Odyssey. Yes, I do believe Origins was better for the direction of the game, and I hope they go back in that direction. Odyssey, like I just said, not a bad game. It needs to stay with Odyssey. The mechanics need to stay there. Thank you all for tuning in. I know this is, well, for my standards, this isn't too long of a video. But if you're still here, thank you so much. If you like the video, hit the like button. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more content. I am going to be doing a lot more Battlefield stuff now that that game is released. This video was delayed a little bit because of some technical issues. But, you know, you've seen it, so it's out now, obviously. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/JawsGaming33. Also, check me out on Twitter at JawsGames. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time.
In blackest night, the Sinai sleeps, exhausted with grief. Our mouths filled with ashes, we weep tears of blood. Who will deliver us from despair? Our hero moves with the mist, as silent as the sea, delivering death. Unknown, unseen, ever unforgiving. Listen, let me tell you of him, the legend of Siwa, the shadow who is Bayek. Bayek, Bayek, Bayek. Bayek.
Sounds like quite a man.